Today we're going to talk about who needs to be in a strategy meeting. I'm just going to talk from my experience, what works and what doesn't, and the things to consider when you're building a strategy. Now, when you're building a strategy, you want it to be a collaborative exercise. However, you can't have every single person involved in the company or on the team in your strategy building. In some cases, you might be able to do this, but not in all. Where you have a big team or you're organizing a strategy on a company level, you definitely can't have everybody there because this is going to derail the strategy building process, and the value to be added starts diminishing the more people that you add to the mix. So keep it as small as possible. So let's talk about strategy planning on a company level. This seems to be maybe the easiest in terms of who needs to be there, because if it's a large company, you have a senior leadership team, and those are the people who head up individual departments, and in order to build a company strategy, you will need to have representatives, the leaders of those departments, on the strategy session. So that's pretty straightforward. You have your company strategy, now you are thinking about your department strategy. If your department has heads or department leads or directors within the department, then like the company strategy, this is pretty straightforward. You just have all of them there in order to build out the strategy. If you have a small team and you don't necessarily have heads within your department or your team segmented further than that, it's just you and your team. If it's a small team, then yes, just you and your team. Otherwise, it's you and your key direct reports. When you're building a strategy that is a cross-functional initiative, so it is not stemming from a single department, it involves multiple departments. You take the leaders of the initiative and bring them together to formulate the strategy. Or if it's a small enough team, and I'm talking about 10 people or less, preferably around half of that, like try to get it as small as possible. 5 people is kind of the sweet spot. Then you bring them together to formulate the strategy. What you do not want to do is try to fill numbers for the sake of filling numbers. That's not going to work. You're going to end up bringing somebody on who can't put as much to the process, or they're going to lose interest, and you don't want that. You want to keep this activity as high energy as possible, because if you saw the last video, you will see why strategy is hard. I brought that down a little bit so that we can understand why strategy can be difficult to develop, and I'll link that video. You can go watch it if you haven't seen it already. So yeah, try and keep your numbers small. Now, coming to the collaborative point, because yes, okay, from what you're saying, Loell, I can see that we're going to collaborate with the people who are in on the strategy session, but I really feel like people in my wider team could add value to the strategy. And yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. You can garner ideas from them. You can canvas their ideas and their thoughts and their expertise. This is important. This is part of your research. But in terms of building the strategy end to end, you really need a targeted team for that. So you can do both. Collaboration within your targeted team who are going to build out the strategy end to end, and also collaboration from your wider team who are going to offer their expertise, their insights, and their ideas into the content of the strategy, and also how you might want to implement that strategy once it's designed. We have talked about the organization in terms of how they build up their strategies and who needs to be in that meeting, who needs to be on that team. We've talked about bigger teams and who needs to be in that strategy setting meeting. And we've also talked about cross-functional and smaller teams as well, and who needs to be on those sessions. But how do you structure those sessions? That's something that is going to come later on, and it's something that we're going to deep dive into when we run our strategy workshop. Now, I really want you to be there, but with any workshop, the numbers are limited. We can't have a bunch of people on the workshop because you're just not going to get the value. And I want you to be there. So to do that, you're going to have to register for this strategy workshop that I'm going to run to show you how I map out my strategies. and how I map out strategies for clients, the framework that I use, so that you can go ahead and do the same with your teams. Now, to do that, you're going to have to sign up to my newsletter so that you'll get the invite for this workshop and others when they happen. And the link will be in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video in our strategy series.